Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be doing my February 2021 bullet journal setup. Let's get started with the cover page. This month's theme is all about hearts and cards. Right now I'm drawing lots of playing cards around the edges of the page. So I was inspired by Alice in Wonderland. That's why I'm also adding some drawings related to the story, such as the hat and the watch. This isn't really an Alice in Wonderland theme, it's more about the cards, but I think that these extra items make the page look more fun. I also added a few roses around the page. In the center, I'm drawing a ring of cards. I also added a few cards sticking out and overlapping with the other cards to add more interest. I wrote February with my brush pen, then I drew the suits on the cards. I realized that I drew many black diamond cards. In my head, I thought black diamond cards existed. I only realized that it was wrong after I finished all of the spreads. So yeah, you'll see my mistake throughout this whole video, but at least it's not a major problem. Now I'm coloring the items. For the hat, I left a white space on the side for a highlight. I don't play with cards very often. When I was younger, I used to call the clubs clovers. Now I'm drawing the roses. This theme is mostly black and white, so the red will add a pop of color. I stylized the coloring by leaving some white spaces on the petals for a sharp highlight. The highlights will make it look super shiny and cartoony. I'm finishing the Alice in Wonderland items with this gold metallic paint pen. I'm going to add this vintage paper that I made by soaking some printer paper in black tea and coffee for 3 to 5 minutes. The vintage paper is super easy to make. I dried them with a hairdryer to speed up the process. I will add this to the cards in order to bring some more color and values to the page. I just cut off a rectangle piece and folded the edges to get the right shape. I made 3 cards and glued them in the outlines that I made before. Now I'm drawing on the details with a red marker. Lastly, I'm using a gray colored pencil to add some shadows, which gives it some more dimension. The cards really popped out more and look less flat. I'm also adding some highlights to the words. And that's the finished cover page. It turned out way better than I expected. Onto the calendar page. I'm starting by drawing a standard grid calendar with my ruler. I left spaces in the calendar line so that I could draw the cards overlapping. At the corner, I'm drawing a checkerboard pattern. Now I'm just drawing the Alice in Wonderland items again. Speaking of Alice in Wonderland, I think I watched the cartoon when I was younger. I don't know if it's just me, but I remember that I was scared of it. Of course, it wasn't actually a scary movie, I was just a scaredy kid back then. At the bottom, I drew some cards overlapping each other. Now I'm coloring the items on top. There are so many things going on in this setup. There's cards, hats, teapots, roses, and it's really chaotic. So I had to be careful because adding too many things can make this page look overcrowded. I came really close to messing up this calendar page because this page has the most things on it in this entire setup. I tried to draw a fancy rose border like one of those curly metal frames, but I had no idea how to draw it, so I kind of messed up. This was my first time drawing it, but later on I got a little bit better. My advice is to not draw as many curly parts as I did. Later on, you'll see that I only used 2 to 3 curls, and that made it look a lot better. I used my brush pen to color in the checkerboard pattern. The brush pen covered a large area which helped me color faster. Now I'm writing a quote that says, "Don't follow the crowd, listen to your heart." I wanted to write something that relates to hearts. I don't really know what to call this theme. It's kind of like a mashup of Alice in Wonderland, playing cards, and Valentine's Day. I want to find a shorter name for this theme, so comment down below what you would name it. Next, I'm using my red brush pen to color in the objects. Again, I used the same style of leaving white highlights on the roses. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please click the like button. I'll really appreciate it. After that, I'm drawing the hearts on each of the calendar boxes. It kind of makes them look like cards. I added the vintage paper to some random calendar boxes and it really helped the page look more colorful. I'm using the gold paint pen again. I rarely ever get to use this pen, so I'm glad that I get to use it during this setup. I'm drawing a black outline to make the calendar pop out more. To be honest, I think I should have only drawn a black drop shadow instead of a full outline. I think I overdid it a little bit. Now I'm adding the shadows with a light gray colored pencil. And here's the finished calendar page. Onto the brain dump page. This is where I'll write my video ideas, thoughts, or any notes that I have. I started by writing the title and drawing a rectangular border around the page. I'm also adding the checkered pattern in the corner. To fill up the edges of the page, I'm drawing lots of cards and other Alice in Wonderland themed drawings. At the top and bottom corners, I drew the rose with the curly gold frame. When drawing the curly parts, you don't have to worry about making the inside look messy, since it's going to be covered up with a paint pen. As always, I cut out the shapes of vintage paper to glue on top of the cards. Now I'll finish coloring the roses and other items with my red marker. By the way, what's your favorite card game? I don't even know how to play the most basic games like solitaire or poker, so I'm interested in learning some. Comment some down below. I used a gold paint pen to color in the golden rose frame and the teapot. Lastly, I'll add a few more details and shadows to the object. That's the brain dump page. Next is the test tracker page. This page uses a table for students to keep track of their information about tests or assignments. You can also use this as a log to track your expenses, exercise, or whatever works for you. Around the edges of the page, I'm drawing some mini cards and roses. I finally got the hang of drawing the curly part, so it looks much better than before. I learned that you just need to start with one large curly shape and then add some smaller curls branching off of it. Now I'm drawing the table. I split up the table into columns for each category. Then I drew multiple rows while I write the information. I glued down a piece of vintage paper for the title bar and the cards. After that, I'm drawing the hearts. I wanted to have more heart cards than any other suit in the setup. On the title bar, I'm writing the category for each column. You can write your own categories depending on what your own tracker is about. Lastly, I decided to add some grid washi tape to fill in the empty spaces in the tracker. I love how these two pages turned out. Next is the habit tracker. This is where I'll track how often I do my habits and see which ones I need to improve on. I'm starting by writing a title in the same cursive font as always. Then I added some highlights on top of the letters using a white gel pen. For the mini calendars, I left a space on the top for writing each habit. I messed up on the lines of the first calendar, so I sketched out the lines of the other boxes to make sure that I wouldn't mess up the same way. To fix my mistake, I'm just using a white gel pen. I make a lot of mistakes in my bullet journal, but as long as it's still functional, I don't worry about it. Then I did the same for the other boxes. Next, I'm going to add the decorative elements. In the corner, I'm drawing the rose frame. I like to put this in the corners or edges because the frame can wrap around the sides, which creates a nice border. I'm also drawing the cards and Alice in Wonderland items floating around. Some of them overlap with the calendars and some go behind. I just realized I forgot to draw the teapot handle, so don't forget to draw the handle like I did. While I was planning this video, I was debating between a diamond-shaped checkered pattern and a square-shaped pattern. I chose this regular checkered pattern because it didn't look too overwhelming. I also think the setup is great for people who don't have many markers or art supplies. The only markers I used were black and red, and I'm sure that most people have at least those two colors. The only special art supply I used was the gold paint pen, but I think that can be optional if you don't have it. It looks like I wasted my time writing the habits because I'm going to cover them up with my vintage paper. I tore strips of paper to make a rough edge and I glued them down. Then I'm writing the habits on top with capital letters. The vintage paper really made a difference by adding some more color to the page. Since the theme is mostly black and white, I think the vintage paper is an important element to make it look less boring. To use this, color in the box of each day if you did the habit. Look at the gold, it's so pretty. I'm in love with this page. Next is the sleep tracker. The sleep tracker is a graph that shows when I wake up, when I go to sleep, and how many hours I slept for each day. Usually I would do a mood tracker, but I decided to delete that spread because it wasn't helping me. When I first started bullet journaling, I used the mood tracker to see my bad days, but now I don't have any bad days, so the mood tracker won't help me anymore. Instead, I'm going to replace it with this sleep tracker because my sleep schedule is messed up and I want to fix it. For me, bullet journaling is about practicality and productivity the most, so I want to include spreads that would actually be helpful to me. If something is no longer helpful, then I wouldn't want to waste my time creating a spread for it, you know? I love bullet journaling because I can customize and adjust my spreads to my needs over time. I created a checkered bar for the horizontal and vertical axis. I'll show you how to use this sleep tracker at the end. It's kind of like a floating bar graph. The horizontal axis is for the time I went to bed and woke up, and the vertical axis is for the 28 days of February. I made a row of hearts from 11 p.m. because I want that to be my goal bedtime. At the bottom, I'm drawing some cards and roses. The bottom is pretty much the only place where I can draw things. Luckily, February only has 28 days, so there's a little more room for me to draw. I added a little bit of gold to the title. With some gray, I made some shadows and a bar across both axes. To use this, mark the time you went to bed and the time you woke up. Then draw a line to connect it. This shows how long you slept. You can quickly glance on the left side to see all the bedtimes and the right side to see all the times you woke up for each day. Here's the 2 finished pages. Now on to the weekly spread. This is where I'll write my task and to-do list for the first week of February. I'm going to make a horizontal layout, but first I'm going to add some drawings in the center. I'm drawing cars with items around it so it kind of looks like an explosion. Of course, I don't want to take up too much of the page, so I try to keep the objects smaller towards the outside. At the bottom corners, I'm drawing the rose frame. In front of that, I added a few cards overlapping. Now it's time for the actual boxes for each day. I'm just making a horizontal line with a space in between each box. I cut out some pieces of vintage paper to glue on top of the cards. Now I'm writing a quote that says, "You never know what's on the other side of the card." The calendar page quote was about hearts, so I wanted to make a different quote about cards. I wrote all the non-cursive words first because I had the pen in hand. Then I switched pens to write the cursive words. Now I'm going to finish coloring the cards and other items. It will be helpful to use an actual card as a reference when drawing the patterns so that you know how to place them. I only used pictures for the heart cards online, but I wish I would have used my actual cards so that I would have made less mistakes. After I finished coloring everything, I made a small box in the corner of each day to represent a card. Then I added the details inside. I think this mini card design looks so cute and it also helps it look less plain. One of the boxes is for my weekly task. As always, I'm adding the shadows on the right and bottom side of each item. I added the white gel pen highlights to make the quote pop out more. To fill in the empty spaces on the boxes, I'm adding some strips of washi tape. I tore them up and added them to random places where I felt it was empty. I really liked how this page turned out. Now on to the final flip through. This page was super fun and now it's my favorite bullet journal theme. I love how every page looks together. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.